of being proactive as an employee and in your work, and would understand how being proactive matters significantly for your growth in an organization. Being proactive also holds immense significance in everyday communication within a team. In fact, being a proactive communicator is one of the biggest strengths of a successful team player. We want you to become not just proactive employees or entrepreneurs, but also proactive communicators in your teams. And so we will be sharing a few helpful tips with you. Tip 1 in this series is to be as specific as possible in your communication. Being specific in communication is really a preemptive measure that helps us avoid possible conflicts within our teams and is something that helps ensure that each team member clearly knows and understands what is expected of them. To be specific in communication is to avoid generalities. Let's look at a few statements and see how we can make them more specific to avoid miscommunication. Imagine that a team member of yours comes to you and communicates the following. He says, I'm going to my hometown this week and Usman will be finishing the report I'm working on. So now let's imagine that the same employee, instead of sharing the above statement, shared it in this way. I'm leaving from Lahore on Friday afternoon. I have completed 85% of the project report and I'm entrusting the remaining project to Usman, who at this point only needs to add graphics, finalize formatting, and add the appendix. Don't you think your team member sounds much more reliable and trustworthy at this point, and in fact really professional? We're going to look at another example. Imagine your manager communicates the following to you. We will hold a team meeting tomorrow. Do you think this is sufficient information? How about your manager communicated the same thing in a different way and says, we are having a meeting tomorrow at 3 p.m., which will be running for 1.5 hours approximately. In the second statement, you definitely feel more aware of what your team member is communicating. It helps you keep better track of how you're progressing as a team and the time your team requires from you. When we talk about the benefits of specific communication, they are plenty and definitely help showcase your professionalism to your team members. Tip 2 in our series is to over communicate. This second tip of over communicating means that over communicating is always a better strategy than under communicating. And while this may seem very obvious, this targets a very critical aspect of our communication. So many times, unknowingly, we keep our communication really vague and miss out on sharing important information with our teammates. Sometimes, when a piece of information does not seem too important to you, even then over communicating helps. For example, telling your supervisor that you will be done with your project soon might not be a good idea. Rather, a better idea could be to share how much progress you have made. Similarly, when taking a leave of absence, informing alone is not important. Rather, informing well in advance also comes in the category of over communicating and reflects your professionalism. So, do you remember this special graph that we shared with you in the last course? Yes, this is the Eisenhower matrix, and we used it in the last course to prioritize our work. And so, the interesting fact that we want to share with you here is that this can also be used to prioritize your communication. And with this, we're going to introduce tip 3, which is respond with urgency. So, on an average at Amal Academy, for example, I get 10 emails a day, 3 to 5 phone calls, and almost 2 to 5 messages from different team members. And by the look of it, it may seem that communication takes up a lot of my time during a day at work. Well, this is kind of true. However, one thing we try to do is prioritize how we respond to every communication that we're getting in the day. Every time you get an email or message or even a call, try and quickly analyze if the task is urgent and important according to the matrix, perhaps, and then prioritize responding to your teammates. For communication that is not urgent or maybe not even that important, it still reflects a very good work ethic to acknowledge receiving the email right away. You can simply do that by sending a very brief email to your team member that you have received their email and will get back to their task as soon as possible. And thereafter, you can also set up a reminder or take a note of a less urgent task in your notebook or in your phone and get back to it in detail as soon as you have free time. And so, our last and final tip is to clarify expectations. Finally, another essential to good communication is to clarify expectations that your team has of you. And this also involves following up wherever necessary. For example, here is a situation where an associate is asked to review an interview guide. However, unfortunately, the manager forgot to clarify the chair how thoroughly they want the guide to be reviewed. And so, what she realizes is that she needs to follow up. She can't just sit there and either not do the project or just go on with whatever seems right to her. And so, it is her responsibility to follow up, to take action, and to make sure that she gets the relevant guidelines or get to hear what her manager's expectations are. We hope that you like the tips we shared with you. In the comments, share any other tips that you use to be a good communicator every day. We hope that you remember our friend Ahad, and so after this video, we will get together to resolve another challenge that he has gotten himself into. And in that challenge, we will be utilizing the tips that we just learned.